Hi everybody, welcome back to Main Mission Hope, and today I'm going to be diving into something that might be weighing on your heart if you're new to Christianity or coming back after a long time, and that's what do we do or think when the Bible seems to clash with science? Maybe you've read the creation story in Genesis or the account of Adam and Eve, and you're wondering how they fit with what we know about evolution and the universe. It can feel unsettling, discouraging even to see these differences, but I want you to know that there's hope here, a way to hold on to your faith without turning away from reason, and that's what I'm going to be exploring today. Now remember, I'm no theological expert, so take everything I say with a pinch of salt, and lots of these videos are really primers to get you started thinking about these subjects so you can explore and learn more from other sources. This episode is, however, for two kinds of people, I guess. First, those who already accept scientific explanations like the Big Bang or human evolution, and they're trying to understand why the Bible seems so off. So they've come to the Bible after accepting the Big Bang and human evolution. But also, I want to talk to people who once believed Genesis, say, word for word, a literal meaning, but now see the evidence for science and are thinking, well, how do I keep my faith without feeling lost? How can I believe everything else if the Bible has got this so wrong? So if you're either of those, I'm really glad you're here, and let's find a path forward. Let's start by naming the struggle we're talking about here. So in Genesis, the world is made in 6 days. God shapes Adam from dust and Eve from his rib. But science tells us the universe is billions of years old and humans evolved over millions of years. Now that gap can feel pretty huge. You might say, well, if the Bible is God's word or inspired by God, how can it get this wrong? This is definitely a fair question. It's perfectly okay to feel torn. Doubts don't mean your faith is weak. They mean you're searching for truth, and that's a good thing. So here's something that kind of helps me. The Bible isn't a science book, all right? And think about how old it is. It was never meant to tell us how the world was made in a technical way, like a textbook you'd get at school, with charts and equations. Instead, it's a guide for something deeper, knowing God, understanding our purpose, and finding a way to live with hope. It's about the why of life, not really the how. And I think when we expect, a book that's at least 2,000 years old, more for the Old Testament and less for some of the New Testament, but when we expect it to match science step by step, I think we're asking it to do something that it wasn't designed for. And even if it did, how would the people at the time have understood it? They just wouldn't, because these things just weren't around, were they? Think about when the Bible was written. The Old Testament, including Genesis, came from people who lived over 2,000 years ago. They didn't know about galaxies or DNA or fossils. Their world was different, simpler in some ways, but full of wonder about God and the supernatural. They wrote about what they understood, using stories and images that made sense to them and would make sense to other people. God inspired them, for sure, but they're still human. And as humans, we've got free will. That means we can make mistakes, even when we're trying to share something true. The Bible reflects their time and their words, not a modern lab report. So maybe when we read about the 6 days of creation, maybe it's not about literal days, like 24 hours on a clock. Maybe it's a way to say God brought everything into being step by step, and it's all good. Or maybe he was there starting everything off with the Big Bang, and then the way that everything developed was then encoded into what happened afterwards. Maybe think of it as like a poem of sorts, pointing to a creator who cares. Same with Adam and Eve. Instead of the first two people ever, maybe they could stand for all of us, showing us how we choose our own way, we mess up, and we need God to bring us back. These stories carry big truths about faith, not facts about biology. Now, if you've always taken Genesis literally, this might feel strange at first. Maybe you grew up believing every word just happened as it's written. And I know there's lots of especially evangelical churches that are like that. And now science has shifted your view. And that shift can really, really hurt. It's like you're losing something precious. And I really get that. But here's the hope. Your faith doesn't rest on one way of reading Genesis or any of the other books of the Bible. It rests on Jesus, on his life, his love, and his sacrifice. The Bible's heart isn't in how the world started, or its accuracy, it's in how God saves it. You can let go of a literal 6-day creation and still hold tight to that. For those who've always trusted science, I think this makes it much easier. So that's kind of my approach. It makes it much easier to approach the Bible. You don't have to toss out what you know about evolution to see value in these stories. They're not trying to compete with science. They're speaking to your soul, not your microscope. Here's another thought. Christians don't all see the Bible the same way. Some say it's perfect in every detail, science included. Others say it's perfect for faith and morals, but not things like history or nature. Both views exist and both can lead you to God. What matters is your heart, your willingness to listen and grow. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. And I guess you could say this is the best part. Science and faith don't have to fight. They're like windows into the same world. Science shows us how things work, how stars form, how life changes. Faith shows us what it means, that there's a purpose, a love behind it all. Plenty of scientists believe in God. They look at the universe vastness and see a creator's hand. You can too. So where does this leave us? If you're wrestling with the Bible and science, you don't have to pick a side. You can see Genesis as a story, not a lab report, meant to draw you closer to God. You can accept evolution and still trust that God made it all happen in his own way, in his own time, and your faith can grow stronger, honestly, through questions, not weaker. Thanks for being here today. Christianity, remember, offers hope, a light in the dark, a way to live better for yourself and others. And if this helped at all, maybe share it with someone else, maybe like it, make a comment below. But thank you very, very much. Keep seeking, keep asking. God's big enough for it all. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon.